I just want to welcome everybody to another episode of Unraveling Life's Knots. Today we have a special guest, prior member of the board, Mr. Wayne Swan. So I'm just going to give you a moment to introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, it's a pleasure being here and pleasure meeting you, Earl. In terms of my background, I've spent probably a good 40 years working in different aspects of healthcare delivery, mostly in administrative roles, either as a vice president for human resources or in some cases, just overall management of the organization. I've worked for hospitals, actually a pediatric hospital, teaching hospital, um, two HMOs. So I've pretty much covered the gambit of healthcare delivery systems in terms of working again, primarily trying to recruit staff and fill positions for key positions throughout the organizations that I've worked for. In terms of my volunteer background, I've served in a number of different capacities as vice president, as chair for several organizations in Montgomery County. The most notable is the Conflict Resolution Center for Montgomery County, CRICMIC, some organization that's near and dear to my heart. Basically, I started out on the board with CRICMIC. I took the training for mediation services. And so I did very few mediations, but mostly volunteer work on the board. I think one distinction is I served for 2 years as the president of the board. Typically, we had two co-presidents, and so I guess that was a way of people kind of sharing the workload. I wasn't quite that smart, so I did it all for the most part, and hopefully didn't do too much damage to the organization. But CRICMIC has a very special place in Montgomery County. I mean, when you tell people that we can provide you with free mediation services, they look a little, kind of in disbelief that those kind of services across the county could be provided on a no-fee basis. But yes, it's true. We provide mediation services at no cost. So in terms of the various things that happen in people's daily lives, we offer mediation services. And I think for the most part, in terms of providing the background for the financial health of the organization, we've tagged into a number of places and for the most part asked for volunteers to perform most of the services. Almost all the mediations are done by volunteer mediators. And also we provide different services that are a little more unique, like in the social justice arena, particularly the juvenile justice. That's become kind of a brand for us under CRICMIC. So we're very proud of that. We have senior mediations. We have pretty much across the board opportunities for people to serve as mediators and also to have mediations conducted for them. That's kind of a quick, high-level description of what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Kind of tying back into CRICMIC.
Would you be able to share with us a pivotal moment or experience in your career that significantly influenced your approach to conflict resolution and mediation?
Well, I think in some ways, for me, it comes naturally. In the human resources function, I served as a labor negotiator. And so most of the organizations I worked for, we had labor unions. And so I was the key person in negotiating the agreements with the labor union. And so there are some similarities and dissimilarities with the process of negotiating union contracts and working with the unions. But for the most part, it allowed me a little bit of insight into what the final goal was. And so basically, if the goal is for both parties to be satisfied with the outcome, that's huge. And it's the same thing in union negotiations. You don't want to have one winner and one loser. What we strive for is kind of a mutual agreement. So we give a little bit, take a little bit, and hopefully produce an outcome that's satisfactory to all the parties involved. And so having that background in my tool belt, so to speak, as part of the negotiation process, I was able to kind of understand some of the challenges that the mediators that we work with and hire on a regular basis have to encounter. And so it's in that respect, uh, there's kind of a natural connection going across the both, from union negotiations to mediation for conflicts.
So you have an extensive background, obviously, in human resources that spans over many years. How have these experiences shaped your strategies for managing conflicts, particularly in high stress environments?
Well, I would describe union, if you have a union for an organization, it's high stress,
Yeah.
problems and deal with issues through a grievance process, again, which is somewhat similar in some respects to the mediation process. So if one of the parties has a problem or an issue, we set up a grievance hearing and we basically sit down with all the parties involved and hear them out, basically. And so in some cases, those result in good mutual agreements. In some cases, it doesn't. But we basically end the process by just agreeing to disagree in essence. But more often than not, we basically reach an agreement that's mutually acceptable to both parties or all the parties. Sometimes it's more than two. And so make sure that everyone is part of the process is heard and that they have that we appropriately and correctly identify their issues so that when it's over that we craft a solution that all the parties are going to enforce. And that's for the most part, I think the process does result in good outcomes because of the process and making sure that everyone is heard and everyone's issues are identified so that the solution is going to be satisfactory to all parties concerned.
Sure. So you've served in leadership roles in various organizations. What leadership qualities do you believe are essential for effective conflict resolution?
I think number one is patience, that all the parties be patient as they go through the process, because we want to make sure, again, that each party is heard. And being heard means that we more than just heard you talk. We understand to a degree that we're capable of what the issues are and what a potential for a solution could be around the issues that the individuals identify. So it's in that respect that we everyone has to be patient with the process. There is another element of listening that's critical. That when we say we're listening, we often, as a technique, ask for somebody to repeat what they said so that we're absolutely certain that we understood what they said. And because if we get that wrong, then it's going to adversely affect the mediation. But as long as we're patient and in listening and tying into that to come up with potential solutions, we're going to be successful for all of the parties.
Sure. I would definitely agree. As someone deeply involved in community service and board memberships, how do you balance, or how did you balance professional responsibilities with your commitment to community service and conflict resolution?
Well, I'm one of those people that it's hard for me to say no. Spending a lot of time doing things and helping people out, trying to make sure that things run smoothly. So once I'm invested, I make sure that I do what's necessary to get the job done. And I think in that respect, I've been fairly successful over the span of my career in terms of making sure that my boss and my employer is taken care of and then doing things in that venue as well as I possibly can, but also in terms of the advocacy efforts for helping get funding for different things like with CRICMIC, and also to ensure that the organizations are financially stable. So I think I've been able to do that fairly successfly and balance them because no one's come to me yet and said, don't do that. So it's more like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And and my wife will tell you that it's very seldom that I turn something down. And so she's very much aware of how much time I've committed to the various organizations.
Looking back on your career, what advice would you give to young professionals aspiring to make a difference in the field of conflict resolution and or mediation?
Well, for one, since for the most part we offer the training for free, definitely take the mediation training,
Yeah.
and it's a very satisfying process. So I think that's key for people that are building a career. That there are so many advantages to having that training, and also understanding the process. That those things interrelate with the work that people generally do in their real work. So I think it's a huge advantage for those that are good enough and determined enough to take the training to be able to use those applications across multiple boundaries and to be able to do things well.